So I'll now move to our next keynote speaker, Dr. Ranu Jain from Sydenham's Institute of Management Studies and Research, Entrepreneurship, Education in India. And Dr. Ranu Jain, with experience of more than 12 years in teaching and capital market, is a gold medalist in masters and holds a PhD in capital market. She is associated with well-known Sydenham's Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, as a faculty of finance since 2015. Dr. Jain has been working with SEBI, which is a very important organization in India, a regulator for all the stock exchange, BSE, which is Bombay Stock Exchange, which is the main stock exchange here, and IICA in the field of financial literacy since 2016, and has educated various sectors of society, both in rural and urban. She has been active in research and has various national and international publications to her credit. So, Dr. Jain, welcome. Welcome to this platform. And the time is yours.
Thank you so much for those kind words. And before I start, my sincere apologies again. Actually, cannot tell you, but I lost my all the luggage with original documents, laptop, and everything yesterday, and that's the reason for this particular glitch that everyone has to wait. So my sincere apologies for the same.
No,
And I
no
hope
issues,
I'm
ma'am. Please continue. No issues.
audible
I
now.
think it was it's wonderful to have you here. And please
Thank you
continue.
so much.
Thank you.
And beautiful morning again to everyone. A warm morning. And again, I thank all the organizers for placing that trust in me. And without any further ado, let's delve into the topic. So since morning we have been talking a lot about like literacy, education system, how the globe is changing and everything. I wanted to touch on to one particular topic which I have researched and spent some considerable time as well, is about financial literacy. Now, irrespective of the stream that you are into, financial literacy, I assume, is very, very important because every individual, whether you are into operations, logistics, science, engineering, management, right, finance, marketing, whichever stream we are talking about, uh, finance is something which everyone has, right? You do get, everyone earns and they get a salary or have a earning. Now the question arises as to how to spend that particular earning. Now, and these days, so financial literacy basically means ability to take your financial decisions. If I have certain sum of money, where should I keep it? There are a lot of traditional sources as well which are available. But if we look at the data statistics, we see that this journey from developing country to developed country, or from underdeveloped to developing and then to develop, would come in significantly only and only excuse me, only and only if the financial literacy in any particular country, when that figure goes on increasing. Now what does this figure mean? It also means that people, they start exploring other investment options which are there at their disposal other than the traditional sources of investments, which are considered as normally real estate, gold, and FD, fixed deposits, or real time deposits, right? Now, we have seen in past 20 decades in Southeast Asia, past 2 decades, in the Asian continent, especially about Southeast Asia, if I talk about where even Indonesia also comes in. So there has been a significant improvement and being like lot of work being done by the regulators. In India, we see a lot of work being done by the SEBI, which is Security Exchange Board of India, the RBI, which is Reserve Bank of India, and other institutions as well. They are taking significant Yes, slide is not changing because I'm just setting the context of the uh, topic that we are going to discuss. So, yes, and because of that, this significant difference, we have seen the capital markets are expanding. Now, often the question being asked, which a layman or like they have this particular option question, that if I want to explore other investment options, right, how should I do that? So this is what we are going to discuss in next. I'll try to brief it up as quickly and as much as information I can provide in the next 15-20 minutes that we have in our hand, and then we'll go with the Q&A. So uh, fundamental analysis. Now, what is fundamental analysis? If I talk about the valuation techniques or analysis methods, they are broadly divided into two, which is fundamental and technical. Now, fundamental means it is a stock valuation methodology which focuses on finding the intrinsic value, right? So suppose if I have this particular pen in my hand and it is being sold for 100 INR. Now, if it is being sold for 100 INR, the moment I am ready to pay 100 INR or Indian rupee, I would start thinking that is it worth 100 or it is worth iska cost. What is the cost of this particular thing, right? So that's finding the intrinsic value. Now, how do we evaluate this intrinsic value is what we'll try to find out. And this is not true only for India, but across nations. When we are looking at different capital market investment options, this is how we proceed. So when we talk about wealth management, investment analysis, portfolio management, this is how we proceed. So the questions that we should be asking are these. That the first important question is, what is the general economic environment in which the company is operating, right? So economic environment of the company. Now, economic environment of the company means the economic situations of an economy. So this means that we will first look at the economy. We'll see whether it is in a healthy state of development or not. Is it progressive or not, right? Second, what is the political environment of the country or the market in which the company is operating or based? Why political environment? So time and again, there are a good number of examples even today. And we are very aware of the geopolitical risk which are happening right now, right? Whether we talk about the West or the East, in both the sides, we have seen that whenever there has been, last year there was like political instability in UK, and we saw the result that the GDP was in bad shape, right? And which affected the business. So, or today we are talking about the current geopolitical situation about Palestine and Hamas. Again, we see that in all these times when when political turmoil is there, the company is not able to grow. Why? Because it's always a top-down approach. So if the top management, the people who are at the policy decision-making framework, if that's not stable, then it would be very difficult for the company to perform and do business, right? And the third important question is, when like the company in if it is operating in a market, what is the level of competency that it has? Competition as well as the competency in the company to face that particular competition, right? So these are three very important questions that we should be asking uh, first in order to evaluate any specific uh, any specific investment option that we are looking at, right? Now, as I've just told you, that normally the approach here being followed is either the top-down approach or bottom-up approach. Now, top-down, why top-down? There are three levels. As I've mentioned here, you can see in the slide as well, economy, industry, and company. So, if we are ill, right, what do? Basically, we first go to doctor and doctor evaluates us on certain parameters. So on all those parameters, after checking onto all those parameters, the doctor looks at the parameters, looks at the reports, and then comes up with the analysis and interpretation that whether you are medically fit or not. Similarly, we need to evaluate these three parameters, whether the economy is healthy or not, whether the industry is growing or not, and then we come on to the company. So in the ensuing slides, we'll discuss as to if you have to evaluate an economy, what are those factors that we should be looking at, right? If you have to evaluate an industry in that particular economy, how would you evaluate the industry, right? And when we look at the company, then how do you see whether the company is financially fit or not, right? Okay. So these are few parameters which would help you to see whether the economy is growing. Now, the first one, which is very important, I'm very sure you know, is GDP and the growth rate. So GDP is gross domestic product, which measures the value of goods and services produced in an economy in one financial year, right? So those 365 days, this GDP, is it growing or it's declining? If it is growing, at what pace it is growing, right? Why? Because if this, and what is the reason behind this particular growth, right? It should not be backed. If the growth is backed with all the inflation, then there's no real growth which is happening. So we should not focus on only and only GDP and GDP growth. What is also important is the growth rate, real growth rate, which is inflation. Real growth rate means inflation backed growth rate. Okay. Next is CPI and IIP. So in India, we have this terminology which is consumer price index and wholesale price index. Okay. These are two indices which are available in India to measure inflation. So we need to consider that what is the inflation in particular country. So we have seen in past Venezuela, Zimbabwe, right? Very recently, even Pakistan was facing this problem of higher inflation. So if inflation is not always a demon, many people, they think that inflation is a demon, it's a devil, which is not good for economy or for consumers. But I would like to think you on this particular basis that what is the cause behind inflation? See, inflation would come in. Inflation is increase in price of goods and services. Now, inflation would come in only and only if the prices are increasing. Now, this price increase will come when there's a demand. So, inflation is a direct implication that there's demand in the economy. Correct? Now, the problem comes in when inflation starts rising at a higher percentage. Okay. So, the focus on to maintain this particular inflation. So, basically, it means that there should be acceleration in the when you're driving the vehicle, it should be in a speed. That's where acceleration would come into picture. But it is to be combined with brake so that you can speed, you have that access to that speed combined with brake. So wherever brakes are required, it can be controlled. So this inflation can be controlled. Should be controlled. 4 to 6% is considered as across globe healthy inflation rate. Beyond this, if it starts rising, that's where problems are being faced by the economy. Now, the next is industrial production. So, index of industrial production, this means the industries across, there are different sectors, right? You talk about banking, you talk about, let's say, core metal industries, okay? Then we have IT, pharmaceutical, FMCG, energy. These are different industries. These combined together, every country has a unique index. Okay. So this index would grow only when the actual manufacturing base of an economy is growing. Okay. So that's how we measure index of industrial production. Now, next is employment. So And this is where you would see that the per capita income is very important, right? Only when people have employment, their per capita income would increase, which would get translated into higher standard of living. Now, higher standard of living would come in very simply because why? Because there's demand which is coming in. So this will get reflected in the sales of the company, which will again get reflected in the profits. So this is, it's not just one particular individual point that, or individual indicator or element of an economy which we are talking about, but all these indicators are related. One indicator is related with the other one. Okay. The next is rainfall. Now, from Indian perspective, this is very important because even today, 40-45% of the people, they reside in the rural area and their income is dependent on that, because the farm income, the agricultural produce is still dependent on rainfall. And if rainfall is good, that means the production will be good. When they sell their goods, they'll have more money in their pocket, which will again get translated into sales. So that's where demand. Why are we talking about demand? Demand is very, very important. Companies' profit or corporate profits. How are these corporate profits performing? Right, the companies they will be able to perform when they have sales. Right, these sales, if they cover up all the operating costs, will get translated into profits. So how are the companies in that particular economy operating? Now, another factor which is not being looked upon but is very important is house startup. Now, this will give a clear indication. Why? Because people will buy a house or initiate the development or building up a house only when they have money in their pocket. So that's again simple logic going back, that per capita income is increasing in an economy. How are the inflation that we have talked about is directly related to money supply and interest rates, right? So if interest rates are increasing in an economy, obviously it means that the government in that particular economy is trying to control the inflation. Okay, and because they are trying to control the inflation, they would increase interest rate, and money in that particular economy would flow from riskier investments like capital market investments to less risky investment, maybe in terms of gold or FDs and bank related deposits. Okay, so how are the interest rates varying? And it has direct implication with the inflation. We need to set that relationship very clear and understand that how is that the central bank in an economy, how they are playing with these interest rates so as to control the inflation. So this is the break that I was talking about. Acceleration is your inflation in economy, and the break that I was talking about is your interest rate. Now, personal disposable income, we have already talked about it. Retail sales, the companies, how are they performing in terms of revenue? Because only and only if there are sales, it will get converted into revenue. Budget of an economy. Now, budget gives us an information whether the government is in expansion mode or in contraction mode. And this also gives us an idea that which are those sectors. See, after economy, if you look at this particular slide, we have just seen that after economy, it is the industry. So when you focus on budget, it will give you an idea that the government spending or focus is on the development of which particular industries, where that expansion is actually happening. Okay. And next we talk about international trade. Is it importing or exporting? If they are importing, which is the major sector that they are importing? If they are exporting, which are those major sectors that they are exporting? So all these will give you an idea about the next, from economy, as we move on to the next ladder, get on to a finer microscopic view, right? So these industries will help you, right? You get an idea as to which industry should I focus on. And the bankruptcies, if more number of bankruptcies being filed in an economy, or if we see more number of millionaires and billionaires being added in in the global list from that particular economy, that's a very clear sign whether the economy is on the rising state or in the falling state. Okay, now after economy, the next stage that we have talked about is industry. Now, many people, they have this doubt that it is so very important. Plus, at the same time, it is very difficult to analyze an industry altogether. How do I analyze the industry? So, through my practical experience, I have seen that these are three very basic ones, but so helpful. The moment we start analyzing it, right, it becomes picture clear. So, these are some methods which I have illustrated to analyze an industry. And in management, we talk a lot about Porter's 5 force model. And when I saw Porter's 5 force application in finance, I was really so amused and at the same time very happy as well that this has its application almost in every single industry that we talk about. So when we talk about Porter's 5 force model, right, Porter's 5 force model is the state of industry rivalry, easy entry, exit, right? Who is the price maker? Is it the consumer or the supplier, right? These are Porter's 5 force. So when you analyze one particular industry in that particular economy, we get to know that what is the level of competition. Is it a monopoly business, or there are a lot of it's a kind of it can be a perfect competition or near perfect competition situation, right? It can be a monopoly, it can be oligopoly, it can be monopolistic competition. So the moment you start analyzing there, you get an idea whether this particular industry is very competitive, or if it is a monopoly or oligopoly, then you get a clear picture that yes, it is a basic necessity, people would still be there, demand would be there, and then we get an idea that yes, this is the company that I want to invest in. The next one is pestle analysis. So PEST, PEST, P for political, E for economy, S for social, and T for technology. Often there are some which at times we read it as pestle, PESTEL as well. Okay, where another E is added for environmental, L is for legal. So again, if you look at all of this, basically the Porter's 5 force model is being illustrated in all these models in different ways. When we talk about SWOT analysis, which is the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, which again, nothing but another way of saying, let's say, pest analysis or Porter's 5 force model. Or forget all of this as well. If we don't understand how do we analyze, we should know the KPIs of that particular industry, which is key performance industry. So to give you a few of the examples, if we talk about hospitality industry or in the hotel industry, right, occupancy rate is very important. So what is the occupancy rate in this particular industry? The moment you see this KPI increasing, you know that yes, this particular industry is increasing, right? Again, similarly in aviation, if we talk about the occupancy rate, similarly is very important. If we talk about the telecom sector, here we talk about average usage per consumer and what is the cost of it. How much is, if this average usage per consumer is increasing and the company is able to save on to the cost. So directly I have an idea by looking at these key performance indicators whether it is worth getting into that particular industry or not. And once you are in the industry, then we are trying to identify that which are those companies which are doing or performing really well, which are those gems which I should pick up from this particular industry. So when we are looking at these companies, we should very specifically focus on the financial statements. These statements are like the report that, as I've just told you, when we are ill or when we don't feel good, in a happy note, we normally visit a doctor, and doctor then suggests us different type of tests. The test report after analyzing. So these test reports, analysis and interpretation is very important. The way doctor analyzes your different parameters and comes up with a conclusion, similarly, the uh, company's balance sheet, financial statements, auditors report, directors report, if we look at that, we get a clear picture that whether the company is performing good or not, right? How healthy, how growing it is. So here I've also given an idea as to how can you do this particular analysis. And many times when we talk with different categories of investors and everyone, they say that how this is so very financial terminology that we are talking about. But that is where I come up with a very simple example stating that, sir, no one knew that when we started with the technological advancement, and if I'm using this particular cell phone, being a commerce and then entering into finance, I had no idea that what kind of processor, what kind of camera quality, what is Bluetooth, what is music system, battery backup, nothing I knew. I had no idea how to use Facebook in terms of technology, or maybe Instagram, which is ruling over the world, these type of social medias as well, or maybe in terms of WhatsApp. But slowly and gradually, as I started exploring it, I learned. And this is the process here as well. In terms of finance as well, when we start looking at it and when we learn slowly and gradually, we learn to analyze a company as well. So we do trend analysis, ratio analysis in the coming slide. Very quickly, I'll talk about it as well. So trend analysis is nothing but you simply a depiction of the trend, sales or revenue. Are they growing or declining? Year on year and Q on Q as well, quarter on quarter basis as well. How is the performance? Is it improving? The operations, are they improving or not? The profit margins, are they improving or not? The return. So on all these parameters, we need to see whether the trend is rising or not. And at the same time, we can do comparative analysis as well, that in this particular industry, let's say there are 10 companies, these 10 companies, you do a comparative analysis that yes, this company is performing better in terms of profitability or in terms of return on assets, or this particular company is growing at a faster pace than the others in the same industry. So we get an idea whether this is actually good or not. This particular company, when we compare, see, if I have two, let's say, papers here, okay, the moment I start looking at the GSM quality, okay, color and everything, so what, the moment I start comparing the GSM, I get to know that which one is better. Okay, so when we do comparative analysis, we actually compare companies across the industry to see which one is better. And the first one, where we talk about ratios, these are some of the important ones which help us to analyze, which is return on equity, return on capital employed, debt equity ratio, what is the market value, how are the historical earnings, the products and services that they are offering, does it have a sustainable demand or not, who has the pricing power, is it the supplier or the consumer, what is the operational cost, are they able to recover it or not. These are some of the factors that we need to think about it, right? We also need to see whether the management, who's at the management, do they have any governance issues or not, right? So if the person or the board of directors who are managing those particular company, what kind of track records do they have? Okay. And in the last, if nothing works, we can simply do a common sense analysis. You can look around, you will get to know the trend. Let's say, for example, in if we talk about in India, the kind of food habits that slowly and gradually is changing. So that gave rise, so giants like, or MNCs like KFC, when they entered, okay, or maybe Pizza Hut. So when you see this trend changing, the lifestyle changing, you get a clear cut picture that yes, this is something which would now work. And these are some of the suggestions in terms of reading as well as books, like both in terms of books as well as movies. If you in through lot of entertainment plus learning is what these movies. But yes, this was my take on the fundamental analysis. And thank you so much again to all the organizers and to all the listeners. I'm sure I was able to make up with the earlier loss that I did. And once again, my sincere apologies to everyone who waited for this one. So, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And I think, yes, your presentation was really good and it was worth waiting for you, ma'am. So, I think you spoke about financial literacy, and and you spoke about indicators, how in a financial situation, which are the indicators which mm, I'll just a minute. I'll just switch on my camera. I think it's off.
So it's on.
Okay.
Your camera is
So
on.
yes, yes, ma'am. So so you spoke about indicators. You said and you showed us a lot of indicators like GDP and indexes, different indexes, and how one should look at economy through these indicators. And you spoke about analysis tools, and you told us that how five forces model is being used for finance also, and that's something very important and something to learn for all the students here. You also talk about reports. Reports are very important, as you said that this is how you can find out about a company and how that company is doing, especially the audit reports, the results which are coming up, and how to study financial analysis. It's very important. And then you spoke about trends, how you can look at trends like in India, you gave example of Pizza Hut, KFC, and they are coming. And in the end, the
Okay.
suggestions, especially the movies, was something very, very, very interesting. And I
Thank
think
you.
students will like that.